This one's cultural. What did the French skeleton say? Bonjour. Do you get it? You get it, right? Please tell me you get it. Today's movie we're gonna watch is called The Burning Hell. It's a piece of Christian propaganda from the 1970s where a guy's showing how awful hell is. And I think it's fun to watch these movies because we can make fun of them. But also, it's cathartic for those of us who grew up in environments where we could only interact with Christian media, or we were at least strongly encouraged to. And if that was your experience growing up, then you were enlisted in a culture war against your consent. Because that's what Christian media and art is all about, culture war. Dominating over secular media and art until it is no more. And so I think it's good for us to be honest about that, talk about healing from it, and to talk about more healthy ways of doing Christian media and art.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, hello, Trekkie69. We're gonna watch a spooky movie today.
Oh, I love it. Damon and Sam watching a spooky movie. Hell yeah. I'm about to learn why I'm going to hell for not believing in Jesus.
Oh my God. So, as you've said plenty of times, you're a Jewish atheist, but did you grow up religious at all?
Mm-hmm.
So how was that growing up?
It was definitely interesting. I'm learning increasingly that I didn't learn a lot in Hebrew school because they didn't teach anything useful. They just did, Torah studies, and they didn't, give any American Jewish history, let alone American Jewish socialist history.
Yeah, it's
yeah, and ironically, I feel more connected to my culture now than I did when, I believed in God, went to Hebrew school and, did like the prayers that they made you do and stuff. And I think that's mostly because for me, religion never really gave the community, that sense of community that things like, I finally found a socialist movement, which really has given me community. And via finding that, I, rediscovered my own, cultural identity with, I found that that it's really no surprise that I became an anarchist because the cultural values that, my parents taught me that are informed by Judaism. I said this before on stream, but the whole idea of being a mensch, which is essentially being a good person, not being a dick, and the idea of mitzvot, which is essentially doing a good deed that affects someone's material reality without any, reward in mind, is just literally mutual aid.
Right. That's good.
Yeah. Also, for context, everyone, I took a class in college on Dante's Divine Comedy, so it's going to be interesting to see how the hell that he says Jews go into, which for the most part is just, if they were a good Jew, but they just didn't believe in Jesus, they were just kind of, in this first circle versus, what these people think.
Yeah.
Because it is, granted, it's also, 600 years of ideological development, but also I'm interested.
Yeah, it's interesting how a lot of Christians don't realize that their idea of hell and what it looks like was so much more influenced by Dante's imagery than biblical imagery. And and then in terms of there's this question that isn't clearly answered in the Bible, which is what happened to the pre-Jesus Jews? All these Israelites we read about in the Old Testament, because the whole idea is okay, if you believe in Jesus, you go to heaven. If you don't, you go to hell. So then what happened to all the people before Jesus? And so there's varying perspectives. Well, first of all, in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, there is no hell as in a place where people are getting tortured or bad people. It's everyone goes to every human goes to the same exact place, and that's Sheol, or the grave. And even in Ecclesiastes, he talks about that as kind of like an end to things, not like a new place that you go on living, but it's just like where you go to sleep. Everybody just goes to sleep. And
I find it fascinating that, like so many people I feel think that you can't have a God without having a heaven or hell. And I'm like,
right.
No!
Exactly.
I mean, even when I've never believed in an afterlife, just like ever.
But there's this idea of Jesus dying and then going to Hades, which is like kind of like the New Testament version of Sheol, and then he comes back from the dead. But it's like, so it's very mysterious and not clear at all. And so there are some theories that when Jesus went down there, he saved like all the good Jews who were there and then brought them to heaven. And but then
that's not what Dante says.
Yeah, but then there's this idea of, okay, well, what was happening down there when they were there? And so then it's like these people who want to take all the varying images within the Bible of like the afterlife and combine them into a singular narrative. And so then they say, okay, so Sheol in the Old Testament was also a place of like torture and fire and stuff like that. And then so that means they were all being tortured, and then Jesus went and saved them. Because if they admit that Sheol was actually just like a resting place, then that like problematizes what they say hell is now. And so I think for them it sounds inconsistent to say that hell was created when Jesus died. But I think in reality it's like there is all these varying perspectives of the afterlife that kind of get mixed up within Hellenistic Judaism, influenced by the Greeks, that the first Christians are also working with, because they were Hellenistic Jews. And so there is this image of like a two worlds feeling, and also we're here and then there's paradise or torture or hell or Hades or whatever. Even I think Hellenistic Jews before Jesus were working with this idea that there's no way this is it, all the torture that we're experiencing. There has to be some sort of reward for us as we're getting kicked around and oppressed by empire after empire. Also, there has to be some sort of punishment for them that are torturing us. And so I think they kind of adopt some of those Greek ideas for that hope. And then I think Christians kind of run with that. But then, even then, it's not clear exactly what these early Christians believe about it. And then we see the early church fathers, the first Christian theologians, and like in the first couple centuries are also varying on that. There's some that believe hell is a place where people are just purified and then sent to heaven. It's like a fire that doesn't burn sinners away, that burns sin away, and then you go into heaven. And then others think and then others think it's a place where people go and are tortured forever. So there's definitely diversity among the early church. And then over time, the idea that no, hell is a literal place where people are tortured forever and ever, and everyone who doesn't believe in Jesus goes there, it became more and more popular. But I feel like the big reason why it became more and more popular is because of like colonizer Christianity. That's like the perfect belief in terms of an afterlife for colonizer Christianity, where it's like, if you better convert from your weird indigenous religion to Christianity, or else this is where you're going.
Yeah. Also, I think it makes sense, especially as an institution, gets more centralized and hierarchical, that you'd almost want to evolve these elements of social control, such as saying, "Oh, you be good, defer to hierarchy, or else you'll go to hell."
Yep. It makes it so much easier than having to come up with like a good argument for why someone should become Christian. It's just like, well, this is where you're gonna go, tortured forever and ever. And then anybody could do it. Then anybody could be an evangelist at that point. Also, Alimental brought up annihilationism. So that's the perspective that there will be people that don't get to go to heaven, but they're just going to be annihilated. They'll cease to exist. They don't get tortured forever and ever. They just stop existing. And that perspective is in the Bible too. Like even the famous John 3:16 suggests annihilationism, that whoever believes in the Son shall not perish but have everlasting life. So the implication is the two choices are you perish, you die, or you get to live forever. It's not you either spend your everlasting life in hell or you spend your everlasting life in heaven. It's you either perish or you get everlasting life. And so I personally think a lot of the descriptions of people being sent to hell in the New Testament, I think if we read them properly within their context, even get down to the Greek and everything, I think that they're talking about really annihilationism, and then there's stuff that suggests universalism, like Paul plenty of times, like as in Adam all died and as in Christ all are made alive, and even talking about like the reconciliation of all things and the renewal of all things and the restoration of all things, like all people being saved. And so I think those two perspectives are actually in the New Testament and they contradict one another, but that's the same throughout the whole Bible. There's plenty of contradicting perspectives, and we just have to work with that.
Why don't you introduce the film to, everyone?
Yes.
All I know is the trailer that you sent me. I'm really excited based off of it.
Yeah, so this is The Burning Hell, and it was made in 1974. It's an hour-long, pretty much Christian propaganda where a guy is preaching a sermon about what hell is like. And I haven't watched it. This is just based on like clips I've seen. They show like dramatizations of what he's talking about. And so it should be interesting. Very very cringe. It's already creepy.
Yeah.
And I don't think this part is supposed to be. They're singing like a hymn.
Oh my god. You know how you know they're reactionaries? When their hairstyles are a decade old.
You just made me realize like the whole idea of like dressing modestly really is just dress like how they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And so it changed as decades go by. It still changes, like just dress like they did a decade or two ago. Oh, here we go. Here's Ursus Perkle.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Estes Perkle, and I'm here at Mount Sinai in Numbers 16 through 34.
Oh my god.
It was from George. I mean, this is cheap even for the time period.
Does that shock you? Well, it should, because we're giving you a slight glimpse of an event the Bible tells us about, and the Bible is the Word of God. But perhaps you're saying, preacher, why?
Yes, because humans somehow perfectly are able to interpret the Word of God.
There are many modernistic preachers who are telling their congregations that hell is simply here on earth when the Bible teaches otherwise. It was some months back when I was preparing a sermon. In fact, my subject was hell. My wife had let two young men in to see me. I had no idea what they wanted, and they had no idea I was a preacher.
Their whole style is very modern.
Yeah.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Because these are non-Christians.
Please be seated.
Or they're bad Christians.
Yeah.
I don't know what's worse.
Right.
Gentlemen, I'm certain you had something special on your mind this fine Sunday morning. What is it you want to talk with me about?
Like man,
the hand of a girl.
Jesus.
Good. This Bible talks about a literal hell where sinners burn forever and forever. What do you fellas think about that?
According to Dr. Long, God would never condemn anyone to a burning hell.
Then why did he say that he would in the Bible?
Hey, the Bible don't say no such thing.
It teaches that the wicked go to Hades. Hades is simply a grave.
Oh.
Is that right? Where'd you get your information?
He's aware of the counter-argument.
From the original Greek, and translated to the King James Version, the word hell means grave.
Have either of you read the Greek New Testament?
You gotta be putting me on.
No, we haven't.
Well, I have, and I can assure you that the Greek New Testament teaches a literal burning hell where sinners spend eternity if they're not saved. Gentlemen, I hate to be rude, but I've got a sermon to preach, and I've got quite a little preparing
the fact
to do.
that these
I'm
people
sorry,
think
we
that
didn't know you were a
telling
preacher.
people if you don't
If we
convert,
had,
you're
we wouldn't
going to
have
hell.
stopped
I can't believe they think that's a
Well,
good
that's all right.
sales
No matter of
pitch.
fact, I'm glad you did. I'd like to invite you to come and hear me preach.
Wait a minute, Ken. What's the harm of going to his service? I'd kind of like to hear it.
I kind of like, well, you go here. You do your thing, I'll do mine.
Uh-oh.
Guy.
Enjoyed the service.
He's definitely going to hell in this film. When I was a kid, I remember being very afraid of the possibility of going to hell. And I was legit, like, I felt like I had to confront that as a genuine possibility because it seemed so hard to live sinless. And so I often, as a little kid, would imagine what hell would be like. And for some reason, I imagined it pretty much... For some reason, I couldn't imagine it being tortured, but I imagine it as like very dark and hot.
Where's my purgatory?
Yeah, and a lot of like rocks and stones, and we're just like doing labor with the hot stones like all day, every day, and that's just hell, and it's just very boring and stuff. And so I imagined myself there, and I had to like convince myself that like, I guess it wouldn't be so bad. I guess I would be okay with that. And that would just like calm my anxieties about the very real potential for me going to hell. When it didn't mean, okay, so I'm just gonna live how I want. It was just like, that would just help me feel better about the genuine possibility of me going to hell. Because at a lot of these churches, there's this idea that just getting saved isn't enough. You also have to like be fully sold out for Jesus. You can't just say a prayer and you get in. You have to be super sold out and super committed. And so that helped me with my anxieties. But it's so weird that I was like, I remember as a kid just constantly conjuring that up in my brain as I was daydreaming about it.
Yeah, because like excuse my pun, but that's a hell of a thing to put on a child.
Yep. Also, Ali said that I basically described Muslim hell, which is interesting. Maybe that proves that Islam is true because I was able to conjure it up by myself as a kid. Like,
oh shit. By the way, I just remembered this. I know it's like partially informed by, subsequent Christian interpretations of the afterlife, but there's actually an old Jewish tradition I remember my dad's telling me about, is that hell and heaven. The only difference is that everyone, is kind of sitting at a table with meals in front of them. But for some reason, everyone's arms are situated in, they're like backwards jointed. So you can only, reach across to someone else, but not to yourself. In hell, everyone just tries to feed themselves by it, but all the food just ends up splashing everywhere. And in heaven, everyone feeds the person next to them.
Oh,
which I just love so much.
Yeah, very interesting.
And I feel as though that almost is a very good summation of my whole philosophy of living.
Yeah, and I very much think that these descriptions of heaven and hell were come up with and shared not as a way of saying this is literally what it's going to be like, but as a way of getting people to question their actions right here and right now and how they choose to live their life. So whoever came up with exactly what you just said, I'm sure wasn't thinking this is literally what it's going to be, but it helps you to choose to live differently. And I think Jesus was doing the same thing when he talked about with certain parables that talked about people going to heaven or going to hell. He wasn't saying this is literally what it's going to be like, but its sole purpose was to get people to question their actions here right now, and also to realize that there's a lot of people who think they're going to heaven, but really their actions show that they're going to hell. And so that's what it was all about, was getting you to question your actions right here, right now.
Ali in chat gave it's the allegory of the long spoons, and it's on Wikipedia. So I was wrong. It wasn't people's arms. They were spoons. It says allegory can, according to Wikipedia, it says the allegory can be summarized as follows. In each location, the inhabitants are given access to food, but the utensils are too unwieldy to serve oneself with. In hell, the people cannot cooperate and consequently starve. In heaven, the diners feed one another across the table and are sated.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I like that.
At this precise moment, someone is headed for a burning hell.
Oh my God!
Like this guy.
Yeah!
And this guy. Or no, he's disappointed in this guy happily driving the motorcycle, so.
I think we got the point.
Oh.
Is it just a byword to fill up conversation?
Like, I feel as though when you got newcomers, you shouldn't, like, make them feel like shit.
Yeah.
We were on a gravel road, and he went over a hill, and he lost control. Preacher, he's dead.
Chances are he's likely burning in the flames of hell right now. But I'm worried about you. I'd like to see you saved. Why don't you sit here for the rest of the service?
What you have just witnessed is an example of what I've been talking about. How suddenly life can become death. From the book of Daniel, we have the story of King Belshazzar on earth. Then he lived it up with his friends. Let's see him on his arrival in hell.
Get your filthy hands off me. I'll have you flogged and beheaded for this. Guards! Guards!
Your guards cannot help you now, Majesty.
Where are we?
Wait, who's that supposed to be?
Around you,
I don't know.
Majesty. You're in hell.
Satan just seems like some, petty crime boss, not like, the Lord of Darkness.
Look at this. Their faces are all dirty. And they can't clean it. That's torture.
They were all reduced to just another suffering soul doomed to everlasting torment. And the same applies to friends and relatives of your own, if they're not saved. There is no alternative. There is only one answer, hell.
Oh no. Who's that? Spooky. Oh, that's the dude that just died. He's taking him to hell. His soul to hell.
And hell is real and hot and terrible. Oh, how I wish I could help you to see how awful it would be to turn Jesus down and go to hell.
So, you're going after eternal torment, but I don't feel so bad that I'll do anything significant to try to get you out of it. Yeah, exactly. This tech support.
Take me out of here.
10,000 years from now, every sinner will still be in hell. 100,000 years from now, every sinner will still be in hell. 1 million years from now, every sinner will still be in hell. 100 million years from now, every sinner will still be in hell. 1 billion years from now, the inhabitants of hell will still be sinning, cursing, crying, swearing, in pain that no mortal man has to experience now. Take a look at this chart. My aim is to try to help you think of the length of time in hell. 1 with 9 zeros added to it represents 1 million years. Add 3 more zeros and it represents 1 billion years. Add 3 more zeros and it represents a trillion.
Wait, real quick. Also think of this in the within the context that 17 years or 16 or 15 years of just being alive on this planet without Jesus results in this many years of being tortured forever.
Trillion years. As you can see here, you have 1 with
If
all
you look
of
at
these
that
zeros
chart,
representing
eventually
300 zeros years. After this much time
ridiculous.
has elapsed in hell, what time is it? Well, let me say this. After this much time has been consumed, there will still not be one speck of hope for a sinner to ever escape hell. He must remain there forever. Young man, whose favor are you trying to court? Is that buddy of yours worth the torments of an eternal hell? I hate to put it this way, young man, but if you were in hell right now, you'd probably see him in an agonizing fire.
I hate to put it this way, but no, I actually love putting it this way.
You'll see torture like you've never seen before. Hell is called a bottomless pit. This means that sinners will be falling forever. There'll never be a solid footing under you. In Revelation chapter 9, we read about some horrible creatures that live in hell.
I'm confused. If they're falling, then how can they be in a lake of fire? Or how can they be laying on the ground? That makes no sense.
You just go back and forth between the two, between those two states.
There will be eternal torments there. They come upon earth for a 5-month period of time to torture mortals, yet they will no doubt return to hell to torment the damned forever.
What is
They're
that?
called locusts, but are not like any locust you've ever seen before. Their body is like a horse.
Bruh.
Their breastplate is a breastplate of iron. They have teeth like a lion, hair like a woman, and they wear crowns of gold.
I can listen to that.
Whoa.
Oh no, the worm!
Wait, Moses! Wait! Come back, Moses! Come back! I didn't mean it! I didn't mean it!
Mentioned in the Bible.
John the Baptist. Oh, he's imagining himself in hell now.
Hello. You must have just arrived. I don't remember seeing you before. How long have you been dead? I don't... His name is Phaziel. He chopped off the head of John the Baptist and gave it to Salome. And he's not allowed to forget. He thinks everyone's John the Baptist.
Oh my God.
You're not John the Baptist, are you?
No, I'm not.
Poor Cain, I wish he'd stop looking at his hands. That's the way he killed his brother Abel. Choked him to death. Oh, and that's Haziel. He used to be king of Syria. That is, he became king after he murdered Ben-Hadad. But down here, he's just another doomed soul.
Why is that man looking at me?
I told you before. He thinks you look like John the Baptist.
He's still alive! He's still alive! That's this time! I'll kill him!
Lord, Jesus, help me. I don't want to be here.
I don't know what your thoughts have been, but no matter how horribly you visualized hell, it's much worse than that. The next step is up to you. God wants you saved.
I could totally see people showing this to like fucking 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
And it just giving them nightmares.
Absolutely. I saw stuff like with the similar purpose to this as a little kid that was made in like the early 2000s or 90s, in the 90s.
I don't want to go to hell like Ken did. Save me, Lord. Please.
Wouldn't you also like to come to Jesus and be saved today? Perhaps you're saying, preacher, I couldn't come after a message like that. People would say I'd been scared into getting saved.
True.
What would that matter? You're looking at a man who in 1940 got scared that I'd go to hell. and I came to Jesus, and he saved me. He would do the same for you if you would let him.
What?
Why don't you get up from where you are and come to the altar right now?
Oh, that was it. Wow, that was intense. But thank you for enduring that with me, Trekkie.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so Trekkie, like, straight up, a bunch of Christian kids were raised being told that kind of stuff their whole childhood. Isn't that wild?
I can't even imagine.
People don't realize how traumatizing that actually is. It's interesting too, like I've even talked to certain people who have like done a lot of questioning and challenging and exploring in their Christian faith, and they've become like pretty progressive and open and even leftist, but they still hold on to hell. I think it's really sad, and I think it's because of just how it's manipulated people and traumatized people, and just it keeps them scared.
Yeah, from what I can tell, that isn't that very similar behavior to like a lot of cults, where like they get you incredibly scared and then say we're the only ones who can save you.
Yep. And so, but there is, I will say this, there are some leftist Christians I know who hold on to hell, but it's not in the way that they were taught. They hold on to it as like, that's where the rich bourgeois oppressors go, but that's only who goes there, not like the teenager who like smoking weed and sleeping with their girlfriend or something like that, and then they go to hell or something like that. But they keep an idea of hell, but it's just for the rich bourgeois assholes, which is, I understand, but personally,
if I believed in hell, that's what my concept of hell would be.
Right.
It's just, you know. By the way, and for CEOs like Jeff Bezos, when they go to hell, their hell is just being reincarnated, is just living life over and over again as a desperately poor person under capitalism.
Well, it's kind of similar to that parable with the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man who refused to help the poor beggars spends eternity dehydrated and begging for someone to give him some water, because that's the situation he left so many poor people in during his life. So I think that's interesting to think about too.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Everybody go follow Trekkie.
Bye, everyone.
This was an interesting night on hell. The burning hell.